I first met Emma electronically, as things go these days,
Yeah.
almost 2 years ago. She reached out to us at ASP, interested in wanting. She wanted to know if we wanted to set up a shop, a print-on-demand shop, because she draws and she does great artwork, which you're going to be able to see. And she was interested in letting us put some of that artwork on shirts and stickers and whatever, to help support our work, which was fabulous. And we hadn't actually had any shirts or things for sale for a while at that point. And so that encouraged us to start doing that again. And I know a lot of people were really excited about that, especially for the stuff that you've done. And that was awesome. And I should mention, I think at the time you were a sophomore in high school
I
when you
was.
came up with that idea, which is also super awesome. Great. All right. So Emma has said that she will answer questions as she goes along in the presentation. So you can just put those in the comments or the chat on whichever side, Facebook or YouTube, that you're watching on. And I'll keep track of those while you're going through your presentation, Emma. So if you want to set up the, I'm still not seeing the camera. So I guess if you want to set up the screen share, there it is.
All right, let me share my screen share. Yeah, so hello, my name is Emma, and I'm going to be presenting today about snakes in artwork. So why don't I, come on, Google, I know you can do this. There we go. All right, can you guys see that? Cool.
I
Well,
can see it.
cool, we're just going to go with it. So next slide. So I'll be taking questions throughout the presentation. Like, you guys can send them in a chat and I will read them as we go. So what is this presentation about? I mean, this is about the artwork that I have made and how I've been trying to use it to help reptile and amphibian conservation. I'll be talking about 3 of my projects: Tale of Scales, and some scientific illustration, and some of the designs that Melissa mentioned earlier for ASP. Tale of Scales is a deck of playing cards with an illustration of a different reptile on every single card. I brought this project to Kickstarter I think a year ago, and I got it funded and I got a bunch of decks printed and I'm trying to get them into retail, but the pandemic is a thing, so it'll have to wait. I've also been doing scientific illustration for fun and for Van Wallish, he is a herpetologist, description paper for the snake Indotyphlops ozakiae, which is a blind snake. And of course, also the ASP art, which I'm going to be covering in this presentation as well. That is being sold in the ASP store to help fundraise. So, who am I? Oh, that just went forward one. I am Emma. I am a senior in high school. I'm 17 years old, and I'm really interested in biology and the natural sciences. And I've also just really liked drawing since forever. I was that kid in school who would dig through the dirt during recess looking for ants. And my favorite things in the whole entire world were dinosaurs. So I would draw a whole bunch of dinosaurs every day. And that would turn into drawing dragons. And of course, the next reasonable evolution from there was drawing living reptiles. So let's start off with Tale of Scales. We're gonna use some wordplay over here as the Tale of Scales. This project started out as an assignment for graphic design class at school. Just in high school, I took this course. It was like an art class. And we received an assignment, I think in October, to design a suit of playing cards. So if you got a poker deck, it's just a suit of hearts or the suit of spades or one of those. So I started out designing the suit of hearts and thought it might be cool to do the entire deck. So I drew the entire thing in 2 months. Oh, I kind of regret doing it that fast because my wrist is a little bit injured now, but that's okay. And I brought it to Kickstarter where it was crowdfunded. Oh my god, this keeps on jumping forward 2 slides. So this is what the illustration process looked like for these cards. As mentioned earlier, there is a different reptile or amphibian on every single card. This would be the King of Hearts, or the corn snake. So we started off with a sketch, just the red lines you see over there. and that turned into the line art. And throughout this process, I'd keep an eye on the colors I wanted to use in this because the colors throughout each suit of cards would be limited to 8 colors, and that helped tie them together cohesively as like a color scheme. The final colored version looked like this on the right side, and you can see that I didn't really shade it a whole lot. It's mostly just using what I had already available via colors, and so it ties together really nicely. I think the corn snake color palette, just the what corn snakes looked like, actually fit this color scheme quite a bit. So let's see how Taylor Scales was received as a project. It was totally funded on Kickstarter, which I was very happy about. I think I asked for $3,000 to go and print a whole bunch of decks, and people who helped pitch in to that $3,000, they got they got decks mailed to them. I think it was $15 per deck. And once they finally arrived to people, a lot of people said that the cards have actually sort of interrupted their poker nights because people would stop the game to peek through all the reptile faces throughout the deck and look through all the art. People have also asked about getting tattoos done of some of the card designs, although that's right around when COVID hit. So I'm not sure if any of those tattoos actually made it to the drawing board, but it's still pretty cool. People wanted to have my artwork on them. So yeah, people did enjoy this deck quite a bit, and I think it was pretty cool. People got exposed to a whole bunch of different species that they wouldn't normally be looking at, because normally on a playing card night, you're not looking at Komodo dragons and corn snakes and gaboon vipers. You're looking at the little pips on the cards. So, how does tail scales interact with reptile and wildlife conservation? So earlier I mentioned that people were getting exposed to these new little species and seeing, during their Sunday night poker game, here is a desert rain frog. And I think it's cool to have reptiles and amphibians pop up in casual day-to-day life. A lot of people play card games, but not everyone who plays card games necessarily knows what a Sicilian or Gaboon Viper or Copperhead is. And so when people have been bringing these cards out to play with their family or their poker club, people have been seeing all these species that they didn't know about earlier. And when you're interested or exposed to this thing that you don't know about a whole lot, it tends to pique interest. And that's where it can benefit conservation, because when you're interested in something, you kind of want to learn more about it, which can lead you to finding out about conservation and other little organizations. I've also been using the cards to help fundraise for a few wildlife conservation organizations. So, ASP received a couple of these to sell. And I've also been working with this organization in Mexico called Axolotlilan to help fundraise for their axolotl museum project. They want to build a axolotl conservatory slash museum in Mexico City, I think. So because I have so many of these decks now printed, I've been trying to get them into retail, which it's currently on pause because, the pandemic is a thing, and getting things into brick and mortar stores is pretty tough these days. Here are just a couple more pieces from the deck. This is the suit of diamonds. We have the 10 of diamonds, which is a bearded dragon, the jack of diamonds, which is the basilisk lizard, and the queen of diamonds, which is the green tree python. And so again, the bearded dragons are not actually that neon yellow color in real life, but it sort of fits the scheme I had laid out, and I think the green tree python colors line up pretty nicely. So again, bringing these into retail, I had to do a whole bunch of packaging design. I didn't really get a whole lot of say into packaging because my card manufacturer just gave me a template and told me to cover it with artwork. So that's it. I did that. So we had the bigger box design, and then we had just the individual tuck box for each deck. And I had a couple printed out, and this is what they look like currently. Uh, they look like they could belong in a store, but they're not in a store yet. Hopefully, they'll be someday. So here are just a couple more process pictures of the design process behind Taylor Scales. You can see on the axolotl piece, there is an auction piece of artwork that I made for Axolotlilan that I got printed out and brought it to a reptile expo to auction off, and then the proceeds went to Axolotlilan, which was pretty cool. Then we have the ball python. I'm not sure how you guys can read the design notes I have scribbled down in my messy little chicken scratch down there, but a lot of the design for the ball python was focused on showing how shy they were, because usually, uh, the people who are playing cards with these, they don't really know a whole lot about each individual species. They're just like, "Wow, that's a interesting picture. So I tried to make each individual picture have as much personality of the species as possible. So for the ball pythons, I was trying to emphasize their shyness. So they kind of had that head kind of ducked down, almost like a submissive little puppy-eyed stare back up at the viewer. And a couple more process pictures. We have the copperhead, the four of hearts, and you can see my illustration keywords, or maybe you can't see them because it's a little bit small. But it says that the main ideas for doing this illustration were trying to be stable, having a snake that was sitting or feeling safe or lying in wait. And so I added that sassafras above it to kind of give it that sheltered appearance. And here we also have the process behind the Queen of Diamonds card. So now we're working with the scientific illustration. After I finished about half of my cards for Scales, I brought them to a couple of friends of mine at the Harvard Museum of Comparative Zoology. And that's where Van Wallish, he's a herpetologist, offered me the opportunity to illustrate his species description paper for this blind snake species, Ozaki Indotyphlops ozakiae, also known as Ozaki's blind snake. There we go. I can speak. So I did the top-down view and then also the side view. Just the head images for the snake. Blind snakes look very funny, and it is really good to have the illustrations in the papers because sometimes photos can come up a little bit blurry. And so having that clean line art appearance makes it easy to tell the scales apart, which is very valuable in science. And so scientific illustration is it's very focused on clarity. And so emphasizing that in the artwork is key. So this is a illustration I did of some sort of bush viper. I used different species, many different species, reference images while drawing this. So I'm not sure if I can say this is one particular species, but it was more or less just for the practice of drawing hundreds and hundreds of little scales. And so you can see everything is this crisp line that you can see where each scale starts and ends, where the eye is, where the jaws are. And that's valued a lot in scientific illustration because you want to be able to tell things apart and see each individual suture. I also delved a little bit into turtles. So this is a little bit more of a painterly scientific illustration style in which I added some colors, I added some shading, and they look sort of like a overexposed photo. But that's okay because we know what the patterns look like, we know what the scales look like, we know what the shells and coloration looks like. And so what I was talking about earlier in terms of like clarity in scientific illustration, photos are great. You can take a snapshot of something and have that information for later, even if the thing you're trying to take a picture of has long since run away. But sometimes those photos can come up a little bit blurry. So you see this picture I took of a snapping turtle hatchling I found on the bikeway once. It's a pretty bad photo. It's really blurry. And I decided to create an illustration based off of it because I still remember what that turtle looks like. It's just the photo I had for it was no good. So you can see on the left, here's the illustration I created. A lot more clear. You can tell where the scales are. You can see the coloration, the pattern, and a lot more details within. And just further emphasizing why clarity is very necessary for scientific illustration. So now we're hitting the ASP stuff. So this was among the one of the first illustrations I did for ASP for Melissa when I reached out. I think Melissa wanted a black-tailed rattlesnake with a mother with her young, and I was like, okay, that sounds pretty cool. So this was when I was still learning the ins and outs of digital illustration, so some of the shading is a little bit messy, but I think it looks cool. The line art is very clean and the colors are bright. That's all that really matters when you're trying to make artwork for merchandise, really. People like bright colors and clean designs. On the right, there is another scientific illustration style drawing of a coach whip. So I was like, hey, why don't I draw every single scale on the face so we know where it is, and also give it a big flashy sort of like title underneath it, so it would look interesting as a statement sticker or something. I don't really know what I was thinking with that sticker. It just looks cool to me. I also got a bit experimental with different art styles when working with ASP. So this was a piece meant to illustrate rattlesnakes fighting. So I started off going, okay, well I can draw these normally if I wanted to, but it would look pretty interesting if I made these entirely out of triangles. So I did that. We have, I think one of them is, I think they're both Arizona black-tailed rattlesnake or black rattlesnakes. It's just the coloration got a little wacky. And you know what? The coloration looks cool. This was the predecessor of the Danger Doodle shirt design where I was like, "Hey, there is this internet sort of meme where people are calling snakes danger noodles because they look kind of like spaghetti." And so I kind of took that literally and drew a snake curled around a bowl of ramen, which would later become this design on the left. So that's the Danger Noodle shirt design. When drawing that, I was trying to imitate the art style you see on modern Asian street clothes. A lot of people consider that stuff to be cool, and you see things like ramen or big Eastern dragons or this big wave drawing drawn with these squiggly lines and these like pastel airy colors. And I thought, if the formula for making something look cool in that style is the colors and the squiggly lines, I can also apply that to snakes and have snakes look cool as a result too, right? That would make them more appealing as a design. So I drew that and put onto a shirt, and it's being sold in the ASP store currently. I did like that style quite a bit, actually. So I used it again on the timber rattlesnake drawing on the right, where I drew another mother snake with her young. And that one's a little bit more traditional, less squiggly lines and more just, here's a pretty picture. I hope you like this. Snakes are very cool. And this style is actually what inspired the whoops. That's the style that inspired a lot of the artwork for Scales. And so you see the same like plant drawing style, you see the same coloration style pop up again later. Or earlier in the presentation, I guess. And so while working on Scales, I mentioned I did draw a lot for 2 months, and my wrist eventually did kind of go kaput. So I switched back to something a little bit less wrist intensive, which is pixel art. So, I mean, I still wanted to contribute to some little designs for ASP, so I created this. I think it was an attempt to mimic a video game where I drew a black rattlesnake and like this desert background, and then layered over this advocates for snake preservation title screen over it, like it was a video game, and you're going to click snakes.ngo to go learn more or something. On the right, there's just the isolated pixel art for the snake. And then here are some of my more recent designs. That is a timber rattlesnake on the left, and on the right, I have a white-lipped python known for the rainbow scales. So yeah, my artwork these days is a little bit limited to pixel art, and hopefully my wrist does recover soon. But I'm still making artwork, and I will continue to make artwork for as long as I can. And that's my presentation. If anybody has questions, I can take them right now. Thanks for listening, and thanks to Melissa and Jeff for having me.
Thank you so much, Emma. I'm gonna try turning your video on again, but I'm not sure if it started working or not. It looks like it's still just the blue screen, unfortunately. So I guess I'll go back to the presentation. Things we can see some more of your cool sticker art.
Oh yeah, those are the sticker arts I made a little while ago. I just
Yeah.
kind of stuck them there because it's just little loose drawings. Why
Mhm.
not?
Well, we didn't get a whole lot of questions probably because of the technical difficulties. Oh,
Oh, we
we
got a
did have
question.
one. Oh, so yeah, so Steve, who's one of our fabulous board members, says you're a very talented artist and he appreciates all that you have done for ASP. I do too. I mean, yeah, getting us started with the store thing in general, but just, yeah, the art that you've created for us is just beautiful and nothing, I don't know. And it's so different. Like, I would have never thought to reach out to the whole Danger Noodle thing. Like, I knew that was an internet thing, and just being, I don't know, old was just kind of like, But that shirt is so cute, and that's if not the most popular of the designs that we're selling.
Really?
It's close. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. People love that. People love that shirt.
I'm glad to
Who
hear.
probably wouldn't get any of the other shirts or stickers that we have. Oh yeah. So Steve's question: what would you do to encourage other artists to try their hands at drawing snakes
Okay.
besides watching your wrist?
Okay. Well, using a lot of photos as reference helps a lot in artwork in general. And I think for snakes, trying to get that fluid motion down because their bodies, they're very serpentine, they're fluid, they're wavy, and it can be daunting to draw a whole bunch of those curvy lines and try and make that look presentable. So using photos to start off with is a good starting point for drawing snakes. And of course, photos for the scales in the face. That's necessary because I don't think anybody can memorize doing all the scales.
Or trying to get a snake to sit still while you're,
Oh, yeah.
looking at his face with a magnifying glass to get all the scales.
Yeah. Trying to get a racer to stay still is
Oh,
impossible.
yeah. Oh, yeah, no. Definitely not. Um, yeah, and, I know you've been working on because you're graduating soon, you're done with school, high school,
Mhm.
and thinking about college, and I know you've been doing college applications because 'cause we've been talking about them. So, yeah, I plans for future, like, studies or new art projects, once your wrist is feeling better?
Well, in college, I definitely do plan on going into biology, maybe ecology or environmental or something like that. Um, I am definitely not straying away from herpetology and just studying reptiles in general. I have loved those things since I was 5, and I will continue to love them for a long time. Yeah. I'll probably keep on doing some artwork in college too, but I'm not going to college for artwork because I mean, I can get a job in artwork without necessarily having years and years of schooling in it. But I cannot get a job in doing biology or research if I don't have, some schooling in that.
That is a very good point. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and you can keep doing the art stuff on the side, and I know you'd always have a glowing recommendation from us if you if there was a job related to that. And I know we have a lot of snake biologists and scientists that follow us, and so I assume eventually when your wrist feels better that you would be interested in more opportunities to do scientific illustrations. I know in the past you were wanting some more experience with that once
Yeah.
your wrist is feeling better.
Once it gets better, which hopefully is soon. I have this ridiculous. Can you see my camera now? Because there is this ridiculous like wrist getup I have to wear whenever I draw. Can you see my
Oh.
camera?
So I had another question that I thought about, and I was actually thinking about this when we did our stream on your YouTube channel last month.
Mhm.
And for all of your art that I've seen, because I can't draw stick figures, so just the idea that you could draw something that then looks so perfect on a screen. Do you have like a tablet or something that you could that has a pen, and do you like draw directly onto the computer that way, or do you like draw on paper and then like scan and trace?
All of the above, actually.
Ah.
So I don't know if my camera is on or not, but I have this tablet that I draw on. It's a little bit small, and I only use it when my wrist is being temperamental. It's a little Wacom tablet, and this one is something you plug into the computer and you draw onto the tablet itself, and the mouse on the computer changes location based on where you draw on the tablet. It's very nifty, but it takes some time to get used to. The
Cool.
other way that I draw on the computer is by using like a stylus for touchscreens and just using that directly on a computer touchscreen surface. And when I do that, I have to wear this ridiculous wrist getup because that is what upsets my wrist. Even though it's the best way to draw for me, I have to go looking like this. There is a wrist brace outside of a smear guard. It looks like I'm a ninja. Yeah,
Nice. So that's not just to provide support, that's also to keep like your fingers from making marks on the screen and stuff.
definitely. Yeah.
Wow, fancy. Like high-tech art.
Yeah. I mean, I could just wrap a bandage around my hand and they'll do the same job, but I would rather not go through 100 bandages every month.
Yeah. Well, um, I don't see any more questions in the chat. We'll give them another second just in case there is anything else. And just because I clearly this is working on Facebook because I'm seeing comments from there. I'm not sure about YouTube. So if it didn't, then we'll probably like post this on there and then people can ask questions. And is it okay if I email any more questions that come our way to you, Emma, that
Yeah,
we can
absolutely.
post and send back to people?
Yeah, I'd love to
Cool.
answer those.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I'm sorry about all the tech issues. The
It's
internet
really
is a
fine.
fickle beast, and it's
It really
kind
is.
of for us that trade-off of living in the woods. Although it sounds like you kind of live in the woods of sort too.
Yeah, but we're close enough to civilization such that it's not terrible. We're still in the woods.
No. Great. Well, I'm not seeing anything else. So thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you
I
so much
love
for
the
having me.
presentation, and it was nice to talk about something a little different than just research, although I'm super excited as you go along in school to see what you end up doing in that area as well.
Yeah, thank you.
So, all right. And thank you all for tuning in, and we'll be in touch when we're ready to announce the next episode of Snakes Are Everything. Good night, everybody.